Heyo, Omni Dogs and Omni Kittens. It's Omni Dog from Omni Dog's Vault here on a crime corner with my co-host Taylor Brown. Taylor, how's it going, buddy?
I'm doing great. I'm doing even better now because the smell of chocolate is filling my office as I have my candy, my Easter candy, ready to go for the show. I know Jess and I were just talking about the Easter candy hauls that we just got in. Jess, why don't you show us the candy you just risked your life to go get?
I did. My wife sent me out into the world to get Easter candy for my daughter, and there's a store that's got old-time candy bars that you can't get anywhere else. They special order them, and so my daughter loves Peeps, which I think are disgusting. So I got Peeps for her and some other stuff, but then I got myself a Goo Goo cluster,
which I've never heard of before.
And I would be happy to open it, take a bite, and show you what it looks like inside. It is some quality candy.
So Jess, why don't you tell us all what's in there? It looks like it's some caramel and maybe some, what's the white stuff?
Marshmallow. Peanut, caramel, and marshmallow nougat covered in milk chocolate.
I can't imagine that being bad.
Right. That's the right attitude.
If that was coconut, I wouldn't have liked it.
Oh, you're not a coconut fan?
I hate coconut.
Ah, okay. So my daughter doesn't like coconut either.
What's the coconut candy? Is it Mounds?
Yeah.
I hate
Almond Joy.
I just hate coconut. I hate coconut.
Oh.
You know how people put like coconut on like cupcakes and things like that?
Yeah.
It reminds me of fingernails, those little strips of coconut. I think you're eating fingernails.
Somebody clipped their nails and put it
up. Yeah, it's like clip, clip, clip. Here you go.
Ew.
I'm excited to see this.
And I'll take a bite and show you the inside. Oh, it's so good.
When was the last time you had one of those?
About 10 minutes ago.
I mean, before today. Do you get them regularly, or is that a special occasion?
No, I haven't had these in a couple of years, probably.
That looks really good.
Delightful.
If I ever come across them, I'll definitely get them.
I think you dig it.
I'm more of like a plain Jane candy eater today. I have the classic Reese's. I have the Reese's egg, and I have the Reese's cups. So I'm going to go for the Reese's egg because it's my favorite kind of Reese's. It has the perfect chocolate to peanut butter ratio. Okay. You all know what I'm talking about. I'm not a big fan of the mega Reese's cup. It's too much.
What is that? Is that like a giant thing?
Like a giant one.
Oh, okay.
It's like my favorite kind of Oreos are double stuffed.
Me too.
I hate the mega stuff. It's too much.
I agree.
So here we go. Look at that. It's perfect diet. It's a perfect ratio.
That is perfect.
All right. So we'll be eating the candy throughout the show. But we are here to talk about crime books.
Crime books.
So Jess, what book are we going to talk about first today?
Well, we had a recent guest, Greg Rucka, and I had this book out the whole time wanting to talk to him about it. And we never really got a chance to talk to him about any of his specific books, really, besides
we did Lazarus.
We
talked about Gotham Central.
Yeah.
We talked about Black Magic for a little bit.
Yeah.
He fascinated us with his PI stories.
Right. Whiteout. This is a book that I got. This is a special edition book. It is signed and numbered by Greg Rucka and Steve Lieber.
Does that have both stories, both story arcs in there?
Yeah, it has both stories in this.
Okay, cool.
So this is called Total Whiteout, but otherwise you can get Whiteout quite easily.
I have this one, the Compendium edition.
Right. That's a cool cover. I like that cover.
And we'll be reviewing Queen and Country at the end of this month. Hopefully, I think Jess has got a little bit delayed. But I think they're pretty much the same format. They're kind of like little digest sized. They're not like regular paperbacks. So that's
is that a little bit smaller?
It's a little bit smaller. Let me see. This is a standard size hardcover, which is the same as a paperback size. This is what it looks like.
Oh, okay.
I didn't mind it though. It was fine.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit smaller, but I don't think it's that big of a deal.
Right.
Not a deal breaker for me.
So, do you want to talk as I sum up the first arc, or
I can read the back for you?
I show pictures of it?
Yeah, you can show off the art, and I'll read the back cover.
Okay.
For everyone.
Wait a minute. Let me move this Okay. Good.
All right, you can't get any farther down than the bottom of the world, Antarctica. Cold, desolate, nothing but ice and snow for miles and miles. Carrie Stetko is a U.S. Marshal, and she's made the ice her home. In its vastness, she found the only place where she can forget her troubled past and feel at ease until someone commits a murder in her jurisdiction. Whiteout follows Carrie from her pursuit of the murderer among 5 men scattered across the continent in the original Whiteout to the explosion at a Russian science station that could rock the ice and potentially the world and Whiteout melt. So essentially, both these books have 2 story arcs. That's all they've done. I'm guessing that's all they're going to do. And the first story revolves around a murder that happens on her and one of the bases in Antarctica. I believe there's like 4 or 5. And I never really knew very much about Antarctica before this, Jess. Did you have any idea about Antarctica?
The only reason I did is because some really good friends of ours just visited there and came back and told us all about it.
I was fascinated by that. He goes through a lot of the history of Antarctica.
Yeah.
And we understand it's not really a continent that belongs to anyone. It's kind of like a continent that we all share to a certain degree among various countries. And there's all these different stations made up of different countries and different nations, which I found fascinating, how they kind of have to be careful of not going over each other's jurisdiction, which she kind of does to a certain degree in some of these stories. And so she is a cop, as we already said in the summary, has a troubled past, and you find out what that past is. And she comes across in the first arc a murder, and more people keep getting murdered to cover up that initial crime.
And here's the Whiteout. They have to string a line tether between the buildings because of the Whiteout, and she's hanging on to it, and the tether gets cut, which adds to the tension. And I just wanted to describe the scene, how scary having your tether cut in a Whiteout can be, because it's blinding, seeing nothing but white, and she's suddenly disconnected from everything.
And you feel cold while you read this book.
Yeah.
You can really feel what she's experiencing to a certain degree. And I don't want to ruin it, but the cold has a long-lasting ramification upon her. And you see just how quickly you can have your health taken away from you.
Yeah.
And just the cold, the ice, the wind that's blowing. I really enjoyed the first story arc. I think I actually enjoyed the second one more. Melt.
I agree.
About them stealing like a Russian nuclear reactor, I believe it was. And that was really cool. Where she's working with a Russian ex-Spetsnaz KGB type of spy, and them trying to work together, but at the same time kind of counteracting each other and remembering that they're out for their own particular government. Because her government wants her to get the reactor for the U.S., whereas this guy's government wants him to get the reactor and get it back to Russia. But some feelings develop there, and they kind of develop a bond, even though they're kind of enemies and friends at the same exact time.
Right.
And I really think that Carrie was an excellent character and was really the first strong female protagonist that Rucka ever really developed. Because this is his first work in comics at all. This is his first foray into the comics medium. I thought he did a fantastic job and really shows us why he's so fascinated with the female protagonist. I thought she's a very well-rounded person in this story.
Yeah. I'm trying to decide if it's a reactor or a nuclear weapon.
I can't remember. I read it like 2 weeks ago.
I
think it was.
I'm trying to just see. It's a nuclear nukes. It's nukes.
Oh, okay. They are nukes themselves. Okay, yeah. So even worse.
Yeah, and Spetsnaz is involved, and yeah, it's incredibly exciting. I was just double checking on what it was that was discovered there underground. These specialized mercenaries make away with these nukes, and yeah, as you said, she and the Russian guy need to form an alliance to make sure the warheads don't fall into the wrong hands.
And I really like the second one because it's almost like an action movie, but I really like how she takes out the bad guys. And sometimes the landscape itself takes out the bad guys.
Yeah.
It really shows you how deadly of a place Antarctica is.
Yeah, that's what she says in the story, is that they're going to use to an advantage, even though they're outnumbered like 14-2 or whatever it is that they don't know the ice like she does.
Right. Right. So
Yeah.
I highly recommend this for crime fans, especially Rucka fans.
Yeah.
It's his first foray into comics, like I said, and it's an excellent beginning. I'm really impressed by how strong out of the gate he was in the comics medium. And I love Steve Lieber's art, and it looks so different than his art in Superior Foes of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
It's so
Completely.
different. I think he's a very versatile artist.
Yeah, and I like that it was black and white. I think that really helped convey the sense of the starkness of Antarctica.
Well, even if there was colors, there wouldn't be that much color.
No,
it's so much white and gray.
anyway.
Yeah, so I understand why they made it black and white.
Yeah.
The colors wouldn't have really helped tell the story that much more, in my opinion.
Yeah. So I agree with you. I highly recommend both the stories of Whiteout by Greg Rucka. And I did not know this was his first comic book.
I believe it is. I heard him in an interview recently while I was preparing for our interview, and he said this is his first comic. It might have been Batman. It was either this or Batman. I can't remember which one it was. This is one of his first, at least.
Huh.
One of the very
amazing. I did not know that.
It's definitely his first creator-owned work. I'll say that for sure. I definitely know that. And I really wish that they returned to this character. I think there's so many more stories they could have done in Antarctica with Carrie solving mysteries.
Yeah, I agree. It's a 20-year-old book now. I wish he'd write some more.
There's only so many types of crime stories you can tell, but there's so many more scenarios you can come up with in a place like this.
Yeah.
I definitely recommend getting this. I'm pretty sure the book that Jess has is out of print and it's very hard to get, but this is very in print and easy to get. So I'd recommend you getting this with your next IST haul. Since we're not getting any new books right now, fill in your backlog and read an excellent crime book. This is like a 9.5 out of 10 for me.
I totally agree. I've never even seen this up for order anywhere. Maybe it's on eBay or something, but this was back when 2016 Jess was buying up the world, so it didn't really cost me that much. But I definitely wanted it once I found out it existed. So I wouldn't. You don't need to go for that. I would say the compendium is fine. I would say this is easily 9.5 out of 10. I don't even know. The only reason I'm not giving it a 10 out of 10 is because I guess I have to reserve that for things like Watchmen and Dark Knight Returns and things.
Yeah, I think 10 out of 10 is like a perfect book. Yeah. I'm not saying there's that many flaws in this book, but I wouldn't say it's perfect.
I
would say
I wouldn't even know what was wrong with this book, quite honestly. I think it's a great read and fun and exciting and really well done. The only reason it's not getting a 10, as I said, is that that's reserved for classics of the genre like Matador.
Right. Oh gosh. A 0.5 out of 10. That's still I think it's the only book we disagreed on so far.
I think so too.
I think we might have a book today that we disagree on a little bit though. We'll get to that in a little bit.
But not to the degree that we disagree on
Matador was like night and day difference.
Yeah.
And that was like early days Jess and Taylor too.
It was like the first show.
That was the first Crime Corner. It was a real. I went off on a tirade for like 2 minutes about it. You just like, sat there like.
And I let you.
You did let me, because again, Crime Corner, Batter Days is a place to express our opinions freely and without any judgment, and we want you guys to express your opinions in the comments and in the chat whenever we do live shows. So we're perfectly fine with your opinions as long as you don't say your opinion is the only right opinion.
Right.
All right. So again, 9.5 out of 10. We loved it. Let's move on to the next book. You want to talk about Deadeyes?
Deadeyes.
And so this is a book that Jess told me to read. And actually, this book was previously printed as Dead Rabbit or Dead Rabbits, and they had to take it out of circulation because there was a copyright issue. And they had to come out with a brand new series with a brand new title.
Where'd you find that out?
This came out like 2 years ago or something, or maybe last year.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there was some kind of copyright issue with something they put in the book that was from a restaurant or something. If you guys know what I'm talking about, please put it in the comments.
I like Deadeyes better as a title.
Let me look it up.
That's it's all right. Whatever.
Look that up before we. I remember that. Yeah, Jerry Duggan and John Mccrae to rename Dead Rabbit as Deadeyes from Image Comics. When Deadeyes was published, Dead Rabbit was published by Image Comics. The bar sent a cease and desist notice to Image Comics and the New York branch of Forbidden Planet from selling the comics because the bar in Dead Rabbit published a cocktail napkin that was from an actual bar. So I guess the bar was going to sue Image Comics and those guys if they didn't cease and desist. So they had to rename the whole series and republish it.
Well, that's a hassle.
I know. So at least they came out with it because I really enjoyed this book, Jess.
Oh, good. Yeah.
About it. Do you want to read the back while you show off some art?
Yeah.
All right. So Deadeyes was a prolific stick-up man and hoodlum in Boston in the 1990s until he took down one last big score and skipped town. Or did someone take him out permanently? Nobody ever discovered the truth, that he retired to live a quiet life with his one true love, but now he's back with a vengeance and wearing his mask again to save her. And so, essentially, this is a guy who was retired, and he has to come out of retirement because the hospital is really screwing him over. His wife has cancer, and he can't afford to pay for her medical treatments. And Jess, again, always has me on this show to be the critical eye. Things to his annoyance sometimes. There was one part of this book that didn't really ring true to me, was that he had to come up with the money for his wife's treatments in cash, like right away. I know you've had more experience with the hospital bills, Jeff, but they don't make you pay for it right when you come out of it. They with a payment plan, you can pay as much as you want for as long as you want. Like whenever we had my son last year, they gave us the bill and we had to pay it off as quickly as we wanted to or as long as we wanted to. So that part didn't really ring true for me. I'll accept that it's like a noir, highly, stylized version of our world, but that part was kind of weird to me. I know you kind of blew past that, didn't really care about it though.
I blew past it and didn't even acknowledge that it was an issue. It didn't matter to me. It helped set up the tension and stuff, so it didn't bother me a bit.
That was the one thing that kind of detracted from the story a little bit for me because it took me out of I suspend my disbelief a certain amount for each book that I read. Each book kind of requires you to suspend your disbelief a little bit more. Like reading this book, I don't suspend my disbelief as much as I do with like a Spider-Man comic or a Superman comic. Because guys with guns who are thieves actually exist. Spider-Man does not exist. So in this world, the way they set it up, I just didn't buy into that. But again, I'm nitpicking. Overall, I really enjoyed this book. It was a fantastic read, and I'm glad there's going to be more of it coming forward in the future.
Yeah, I love this book that he is kind of a Robin Hood type character now. And there's tension between him and I think the local mafia guy who thinks he ripped him off.
Right. They've been on the lookout for him for years, and they thought he just disappeared into the sunset, but he reappears, and they want a piece of him.
Yeah, because they feel like that he ripped them off, and so that's an underlying theme through the book, how they're trying to get after him, how he's gone back to a life of crime to pay for the hospital bill for his wife, and she doesn't like that. She doesn't want him back in that life. They were living just fine. And it's I really enjoyed this whole book. I can't remember if somebody suggested this to me or if I just read it on IST, a description of it when it was put up for sale, and I said, this sounds interesting.
I heard about it a couple months ago when it was coming out, but I wasn't really interested until you did it. Didn't you talk about it on Omnibros recently?
Yeah.
That's when I heard about it, and I decided to read it on Hoopla, and I'm like, we should review this for Crime Corner because it was great.
Yeah, this was a blind buy just based on the description on In Stock Trades that I went for because I like Jerry Dugan, and I really enjoyed this, and I'm looking forward to more of it like you are. But I love the aspect that he's more of a Robin Hood now, and the banter was good. There was snappy dialogue. It felt really exciting, and it felt really exciting and fresh and interesting to me. I liked the angle that it took with him coming out of retirement and being a bit of a Robin Hood, as I said. I think this is a really solid book. I'll give this, I think, 8.5 out of 10. This is a definite, you need to get it and read.
I'd give it an 8.
Okay, and I give it an 8.5.
And I really have been eliminating my Image trade buys because I always hope for inevitable hardcovers. Because I've been not burned in the past, but I've had to like sell off those or give them to like, half price books or something. So I've been reading a lot of my Image stuff on Hoopla and waiting for hardcover. So I hope one day they'll have a hardcover of this because I would love that.
Yeah.
And is it John Mccrae? Is that how you say the artist's name? John Mccrae? Do you know what it is?
John Mccrae, I would think.
And so he did Hitman, right?
Yeah, but it's in a much different style than Hitman.
I never read Hitman. I know you're a big fan, but I've never really seen his art in that many places. I think, did he do a little bit in, I think he had a story in the Authority Omnibus, didn't he?
That I can't say.
I haven't read a lot of his comics. So this is one of my first exposures to him. I really thought it was phenomenal. I thought
his line works a lot tighter in Deadeyes than it was in Hitman, which I am now thinking must have been on purpose, the way it was a lot looser and sort of scragglier lines in Hitman, because this is really tightened up a lot in Deadeyes.
And that's one of your big frustrations with DC, that they haven't really released Hitman recently, right? In a good like collected edition.
That, yeah, I think that, well, first of all, Hitman would be a fun Crime Corner book for us to review. Yeah, the first two are badly out of print, and then there's like, how many volumes are there? There's 6, 7 volumes, and so maybe volume 6 is hard to find now, but a bunch of them are hard to find. And it's really one of those critical and fan favorites that everybody likes. Everybody wants to read more of it, but it's like Man of Steel by John Byrne. It's out of print, so they can't get their hands on it. And I think that it would, if you don't have to make an omnibus of it or 2 omnis of it, but you should at least have the paperbacks be back in print along with the question. That the question needs to be in print too.
We could review the new Question Black Label hardcover by Jeff Lemire for Crime Corner when it comes out at some point.
I would love that.
Whenever that comes out, we're in an uncertain time right now, but it'll come out someday. So maybe someday we'll review that. I'm hesitant to review books that aren't readily available because I feel bad.
Well, no, that's a good point.
But I mean, maybe Hitman's on Hoopla. I haven't checked.
Yeah. Hitman and the Question are a couple of frustrations for me from DC.
And I totally forgot to give my movie recommendation for Whiteout.
Oh, I thought we were doing that at the end. Do you do it at the end of every segment? Every book?
I'll wait for the end at this point.
Okay.
I'll wait for the end. Do you want to move on to our next book?
Yes.
All right. Now, so our next book.
Here's where we find the disagreement between Taylor and myself. Last Days of American Crime, Rick Remender and Greg Tocchini.
And so I'm not a big fan of Tocchini's art, and that's where I think the biggest disappointment is for me. I remember reading Uncanny X-Force like several years ago, and that really ripped me out of the story when he had that story arc with Captain Britain and the rest of those characters.
Right.
He just isn't to my taste, to be honest. If you love him, I'm sorry. I'm again, art is subjective. He just doesn't really hit me in my artistic taste. So let me read the back of the book, and while Jess shows off the interior.
Yeah, I thought this was a really cool premise that this book started out with.
In the not-too-distant future, as a final response to terrorism and crime, the U.S. government has devised a neuroinhibitor labeled the American Peace Initiative that once broadcast will make it impossible for anyone to commit unlawful acts, effectively ending crime in America. The government has kept the U.S. population distracted from the API broadcast by another controversy, as it openly prepares to convert from paper currency to a new system based on digitized fiduciary charge cards, a step that will allow the feds to keep a watchful eye on all monetary transactions. Enter Graham Brick, a broken down career criminal who intends to steal one of the machines that charge the newly digitized currency, skip the country, and live the high life. But when news of the API leaks, Graham is suddenly left with only 2 weeks to do the complicated heist, forcing him to enlist help. Enter Kevin Cash and the beautiful Shelby Dupree, a couple of young, slick, and potentially psychotic safecrackers, and off you go. And like Jess already said, I think the initial premise for this book is so inventive and so fantastic, and I was just let down by the execution. I think this could have been like a series. It could have been a little bit longer to flesh out the world a little bit. The world was so fascinating, but you didn't really get a glimpse into the history of what's going on and why this broadcast is happening. I just thought the whole story was rushed. And I feel like the art just seems rushed as well. I think maybe that's just Tocini's style. He's very loose in his pencils. I just don't really love his style, and the way it's inked and the way it's colored doesn't really help it, in my opinion. That's my subjective opinion about the art and the story.
Right. I liked it, I think, a lot more than you did. I found it to be exciting and fast-paced with a really cool premise, enough twists and turns to keep it very interesting. I didn't have a problem with the art like as you did, but you're right, that is subjective, and so I get it. That is, I mean, it is how it is. But I liked how it's told in the countdown format until the broadcast, when you're not going to be able to do anything that's a crime. And these are some action scenes that I thought were really good. I thought they were well drawn, and I understand if you didn't like them, but it didn't detract for me the way that it did for you. I found it to be exciting and well written, and I liked the art. I thought that the two central conceits of the sort of monetary digitized monetary currency type thing and the countdown till the broadcast helped add to the tension and made it really exciting. And I just liked it a lot more than you did, I think.
It was probably my least favorite Rick Remender book that I've read. And again, I wouldn't say it's bad. I just thought it wasn't as good as it could have been.
Yeah.
Like I was somewhat disappointed because I could see how it could have been better. Like, I love Deadly Class. I love Fear Agent. I love Death or Glory, which you reviewed on our first Crime Corner. I think he is capable of so much more. And I've seen him do so much more. And so I just really expected more out of this book than I got.
I don't think you're alone in feeling that this is one of Remender's weaker works. I think that's a common opinion.
I remember a Faria Rampage review on Facebook.
What's that?
I remember a Faria Rampage review on the Facebook group.
About the book?
I don't think she liked it either. I think she somewhat agreed with me, but I think her review is probably harsher than mine. But I didn't hate it. I didn't think it was bad. I enjoyed it. I'm glad I didn't buy it, to be honest. I'm glad I read it on Hoopla. I would recommend checking out on Hoopla before you decide to buy it.
Yeah, this is a big oversized book.
I'm pretty sure the one you have is out of print, but you can buy the paperback readily.
Oh, okay. Great. I've shown 2 out of print books.
And that's a Rick Remender size, right? I think it's as big as Low and the rest of them. I'm pretty sure it's the same size.
Okay, let me check really quick.
Because Rick Remender is known for those big library edition size at Image.
Yeah. Yeah, it's as tall as the other books.
It's definitely his skinniest book. It's less than 200 pages.
Yeah.
Only 3 issues. But each issue is like 50 pages, though.
Yeah.
It initially wasn't through Image. It was through another company, and Image got the rights to it.
I think that, yeah, your opinion is shared amongst many people. And I think I might be the outlier that I enjoyed it more than a lot of people did.
It's going to be a Netflix movie this summer.
What's that now?
It's going to be a Netflix movie this summer.
Ooh, goody.
So you might enjoy that.
Yeah, I'll probably watch that around 2025.
And whenever we have Greg Rucka on again, if we can, if he'll if he'll graciously come back on, I'd love to talk to him about The Old Guard, which is also going to be on Netflix this summer.
Oh,
Which we
yeah.
didn't talk to him about. I wish we had gotten the chance to talk to him about that. But hopefully we'll get him on again in the future if he'll want to join us and we could talk about The Old Guard a little bit.
Yeah, I'd love to get him back on and just have a list of books and just boom, 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 cover all these books.
We covered a lot of ground, but there's just so much to cover with him. It was impossible in one episode unless he stayed on for like 3 hours, which we didn't want to ask or even assume that. So
right.
even though I would think everyone would have enjoyed that.
So what score would you give this then?
Why don't you give me your score first?
I give it an 8 out of 10.
I'd probably give it a 5.5 or 6.
That's what I thought.
So it wasn't horrible. On Goodreads, I gave it a 2.
Out of how many?
Out of 5.
5. Okay.
So here's how I view the Goodreads system. I'm annoyed that they don't have like a half system, like a half star. I view 5 as like perfection. Like it was amazing. 4 is great. 3 is good. 2 is mediocre, and 1 is like horrible. So I gave it a 2.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah. So given the not discrepancy, the wide the wide difference between Taylor and I, you may want to hoopla this first before you go out and buy it to see if you like it.
And Rick Remender, if you ever watch this, I'm a huge fan. I love all your books. If you're a Remender fan, give this a check out on Hoopla at least.
Yeah.
I think he's a fantastic writer. I just don't think it's is as good as his other works, which I really love. So
right.
That's
well,
how I feel.
That's cool.
Should I go into my movie recommendations?
Yeah.
All right.
Here.
My movie recommendation for Whiteout is Christopher Nolan's second movie, Insomnia, starring Al Pacino and Robin Williams. Have you ever seen that, Jess?
No.
So Al Pacino plays a really famous cop who is sent to Alaska to investigate a murder of a teenage girl. And it's not really a spoiler. It's in the trailer. It's on the poster. Robin Williams is the killer. It's not really a whodunit. It's a why done it. And I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a lot of things happening in Al Pacino's personal life that he's being investigated back where he's from for tampering with evidence. And something happens in Alaska that actually Robin Williams catches Al Pacino doing that was wrong. And so they kind of know who each other is, and they're trying to take each other down. And it's set in Alaska, in this part of Alaska where it's light 24/7. There's no darkness at all for this part of the year. And so he is so beset with guilt, and he's so thrown off with his internal clock with the light that he can't sleep. And so he has this case of insomnia where he's trying to figure out how to put Robin Williams down and try to survive all the things that are happening to him. And it is a fantastic movie. I love most of Christopher Nolan's movies. I love Memento, his first movie, which is told backwards. Have you ever seen that, Jess?
A long time ago, yeah.
That's a great film. Insomnia is also a great film. I highly recommend it. Even though it's not really a snowy landscape as much as Antarctica, I think it really captures like the alien nature of a part of our country that we're not really familiar with if you're not from there.
And I can highly disrecommend the movie Whiteout. I did not like it, and doesn't Greg Rucka disavow it too?
Yeah, he's not a fan.
Yeah.
Is it that bad? I never saw it.
It's got Kate Beckinsale in it, right?
Yeah.
I really, first of all, I'm a huge fan of hers. I love the book, so I thought I'm going to love this movie. The problem was the supporting cast wasn't really believable to me in any of it. They were either poorly cast or poor actors. I feel like I saw it so long ago, but I just didn't like it.
Yeah, Greg Rucka says he doesn't like it. Usually when the writer says they don't like it, usually it's going to be good, but there are other people like Stephen King who hates the original Shining, and that's a classic. So I just think for the most part, the writer hates it. It's probably not going to be great, but that's not always the case.
Right.
It also has a 9% on Rotten Tomatoes, so I'm probably not going to give it a watch.
What was it?
It was like a 9%.
9%.
I'm not like beholden to the Rotten Tomato system, but if it's in the single digits, I'm probably not going to like it.
I wonder what made me want to see it so badly in the that I
This
saw it.
came out I think in '09 or something like that.
Yeah.
Back when there weren't as many comic book movies as there are now, and so I think we were all just we were just excited for anything that came out that was
Yeah.
a graphic novel. And
Yeah.
again, it was a book that you enjoyed, so I get it.
Yeah.
So that's the movie I recommend, Insomnia. I think you should check that out, Jess.
Okay.
Next, for Deadeyes, it's the first Michael Mann feature film, Thief, starring James Caan.
Oh, that's a great movie.
That's a great movie. It's really him setting up the rest of his career with movies like Manhunter, which is great, Heat, which is one of my top 5 favorite crime movies. It's hard to beat Heat. That's definitely it's like Heat, Pulp Fiction, and like The Usual Suspects for me. I love those movies.
Yeah.
And also setting up Collateral, which is also a fantastic Michael Mann film. And it's set around a thief. It's kind of a regular storyline of a thief trying to pull off one last job that obviously doesn't go well. But it's Michael Mann. He's a fantastic writer. It's a gorgeous looking film. And I think you'd really, really enjoy it. It's about a thief and how he goes about what he does. And it's really fascinating to see how James Caan does the scores that he does. Even though he's not like a Robin Hood like Deadeyes is. I thought it was a fantastic movie that a lot of people don't really talk about very much. I think in the conversation a little bit more. I think that Heat and Manhunter kind of overshadow it in the Michael Mann filmography.
I don't think Manhunter gets enough love either.
That movie wasn't really popular when it came out, and it became a cult hit. And people look back retrospectively and appreciate it more than it was appreciated back then.
Yeah.
And they came up with a remake in 2002, Red Dragon, with Anthony Hopkins. So that really overshadowed it as well because people saw Anthony Hopkins and they associate him with Hannibal Lecter.
And I didn't think Red Dragon was as good as Manhunter at all.
Yeah, I think that some of the acting was better, but I think the style and the way that that Manhunter was shot was better. Like Ralph Fiennes as the Tooth Fairy is disturbing and creepy as all out. So he was good in that. Edward Norton was good. I just didn't think it was as well made of a film as Manhunter.
Right.
Even though I think the acting was actually better. But I definitely agree with you that Manhunter is a superior film.
And what about Last Days of American Crime?
And so this is a movie you can watch on Netflix tonight if you want to. Those of you who are watching, and it's Minority Report with Tom Cruise.
That's a great movie.
That's one of my favorite Steven Spielberg movies. That's a fantastic movie. It's set in actually I don't know when it's set. It might be not in the so distant future because this came out in 2002. But in 2002, it was set in the future in Washington D.C., so close to you, Jess, where they actually have these humans called precogs who can see the future and see when murders are going to happen and who's going to commit the murder. So cops are actually arresting people before they are able to commit murder. And it has this whole philosophical discussion of is it just to arrest someone before they do a crime, even though you know that they're going to? And it's a fascinating movie. So many great set pieces. Tom Cruise is phenomenal in it. The whole movie is just great from beginning to end. It makes me want to watch it tonight, actually.
Me too.
That's on Netflix, so it's really easy to watch. I'd recommend that to everyone who's never seen it before. It's definitely one of Steven Spielberg's most unappreciated films.
I could not agree with you more that this movie is fantastic and amazing and riveting, suspenseful, well acted, well written, with a lot of memorable scenes, with a lot of great actors in it. And I think it is a brilliant movie. I love Minority Report. I totally agree with you. What a great movie that is.
And it really shows off how diverse of a filmmaker Steven Spielberg really is. I mean, think about his filmography. Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones movies, Jaws. He also did Schindler's List, Saving Private Ryan, Minority Report. He's able to do every different genre, which is fantastic. Jurassic Park. It goes on and on. I know you're not a Jurassic Park fan because you don't like dinosaurs. But anyway, I think this movie is just so unappreciated. And it really shows off his creative muscles in a different way.
Yeah.
Well, I would definitely recommend it. And so to close out, do you want to talk about do you want to recommend our music choices?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, so my music choice is one of the most famous jazz musicians of all time. And that's John Coltrane and his album Blue Train, which I think you would all greatly enjoy. He's one of the most famous jazz musicians, a famous jazz saxophonist. His most famous album is Love Supreme, but I think that's not the best for a jazz newbie. It's very creative, it's very innovative, and it's different. And it's really better to listen to Love Supreme once you have a firm foundation of jazz. So I would recommend Blue Train because it's kind of a better for like a new person entering into the jazz world.
Mm.
What about you, Jess?
Well, I listened to. I didn't discover this, but I just became aware of 1990s group. Not a group. It's a guy. He's a composer. I'm not sure how you would categorize this music. He goes under the creative name of Nightmares on Wax. And I guess if I could compare it to another duo or another group, would be Thievery Corporation. Just very interesting, kind of a mixture of club music with ambient music. There's some vocals in it. It can be fast paced, it can be slow paced. It's very interesting listening. And actually, it got to be too interesting. I had to take it off and read in silence because I was finding myself listening more to the music than I was paying attention to the book. So that's Nightmares on Wax. The specific album. Let me see here.
Jess never disappoints with his off the wall recommendations.
Smoker's Delight is what what I was listening to, and that
one you recommended with a tractor on the front of the album.
Oh yeah,
I laughed about the tractor. I call it tractor music.
Yeah, I think on the flip side, it was a station wagon.
I can't remember.
I can't think of that. Was like Zoyogix or something. Yeah, I can't remember what one that was.
So that's what you listened to while you read these books. All right, so we gave two different choices that are very different, but equally important. People love both of our recommendations, I think. A lot of people seem to like your ambient recommendations, Jess, even though you don't think that they do.
Oh, okay. Well, good. That's great.
So it seems like we agree on which books we enjoyed the most. I think we would both agree if you have to choose one, read Whiteout.
Yep.
Then get Deadeyes. And if you want to try out Last Days of American Crime, try it on Hoopla before you buy it. That's my recommendation.
I agree with all that.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is a great episode.
This was good, and I appreciate your joining me for this. And to all our viewers out there, thank you for watching. We really appreciate it. If you could give us a like, the thumbs up, also subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you get notified. Feel free, when this goes live, feel free to leave a comment. We always respond to comments. And peace and love, peace and love. Stay safe and keep reading comic books and be nice to each other.
Eat candy.
Eat candy.
Get some goo-goo clusters if you can.
Right on, man. That's the best advice.
See you guys.